The Veth Empire had never lost a war. Not once in 3,000 years. Their warships moved through the galaxy like hungry wolves, eating everything in their path. They took what they wanted. They killed who they wanted. No one could stop them. Admiral Tarak stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The ship was massive. It was bigger than most cities. Its weapons could destroy entire planets. Tarak had commanded this ship for 200 years, and in all that time, he had never known defeat. Through the viewing window, he watched another world burn. The planet below had been home to the Polari people. They had built beautiful cities of crystal and light. They had created art and music. They had loved and dreamed and hoped for the future. Now they were dead. Orange fire spread across the surface of the planet. The crystal cities melted. The dreams turned to ash. Another civilization ended because the Veth wanted their resources. How many species have we conquered now? Tarak asked. His voice was calm, almost bored. This was routine for him. His tactical officer checked the records. 412 species conquered, Admiral. 87 of them are now extinct. Tarak nodded slowly. He felt no guilt. The Veth did not understand guilt. They came from a world where only the strong survived. Their planet had been filled with monsters and poisons. Every day was a fight to live. The weak died. The strong ate the weak. This was the natural way of things. The Veth had taken this lesson to the stars. The galaxy was full of weak species. Soft creatures who talked about peace and cooperation. They built their little civilizations and thought they were safe. They were wrong. The Veth came like a storm. They took everything. They showed no mercy because mercy was weakness. A predator that showed mercy would starve. A warrior who showed mercy would die. Tarak turned away from the burning world. There was nothing left worth watching. The Polari were finished. Time to find new prey. What targets remain in this sector? He asked. His intelligence officer pulled up a holographic map. Stars and planets floated in the air between them. Most of the map was colored red, showing Veth territory. But there was still a section of blue. Unconquered space. We have cleared most of this region, the officer reported. However, there is one spiral arm we have not yet touched. Initial probes have detected hundreds of inhabited systems. Tarak felt a small spark of interest. Hundreds of systems meant hundreds of species. Hundreds of civilizations to crush. Hundreds of worlds to claim. Tell me about them, he commanded. The officer began listing species. Most were typical. Peaceful farmers, traders, scientists, easy targets. But one name caught Tarak's attention. Humans, the officer said. They are relatively new to space travel. They have spread to only a handful of worlds. Their military is small. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. Show me. An image appeared on the screen. Tarak saw small creatures with soft skin and no natural weapons. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor. They looked fragile, breakable. They appear to be pack animals. The intelligence officer continued. They live in social groups. They form emotional bonds with each other. Our analysis suggests they will surrender quickly once they see our strength. Tarak made a sound of disgust. Emotional bonds. Social groups. These were weaknesses. A species that cared about each other could be broken easily. Threaten their loved ones, and they would fall apart. How many ships do they have? Tarak asked. A few hundred. Nothing that could challenge our fleet. Tarak smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Veth's smile showed too many teeth. Another easy conquest. Set course for human space. The orders went out across the fleet. 300 Veth warships turned as one. They were the most powerful force in the known galaxy. Each ship was a weapon of mass destruction. Together, they had broken empires that had lasted for millennia. The crew members celebrated. Easy conquest meant easy rewards. They would take human resources, human technology, human slaves. Perhaps a few humans would be kept as curiosities. Little pets to show how far the Veth had spread. No one worried about resistance. Why would they? Every species in history had fallen before the Veth. The strong conquered the weak. This was the law of nature. This was the way the universe worked. Torak returned to his quarters to rest. Soon they would reach human space. Soon another species would learn what it meant to face the Veth Empire. They would learn fear. They would learn despair. They would learn that hope was meaningless against true power. The Admiral slept well that night. He dreamed of fire and victory and the screams of the conquered. Good dreams. Proper dreams for a Veth warrior. He had no way of knowing that everything was about to change. Far ahead, in the darkness of space, a small patrol ship called the Tyvek continued its routine mission. Its captain, a man named Park Suho, was thinking about his family back on Earth. His daughter Gia had a birthday coming up. He hoped he would be home in time. The Tyvek was not a warship. It was a corvette, designed for escort duty and light patrol work. It had a crew of 17. Its weapons were meant for pirates and asteroids, not real combat. Captain Suho had no idea that 300 alien warships were heading toward human space. He did not know that an empire of conquerors had marked humanity for destruction. He was just a simple officer doing his job, counting the days until he could see his family again. But fate does not care about our plans. History does not ask permission before it changes everything. The Veth fleet drew closer. The small human ship continued its patrol. Two paths that should never have crossed were about to meet. And when they did, the galaxy would learn something new. Something that would change everything the Veth believed about strength and weakness, about victory and defeat, about what it truly meant to be powerful. But that lesson was still coming. For now, the conquerors flew toward their next easy victory, and a small crew of humans had no idea what was about to find them. The stars watched in silence. They had seen empires rise and fall before. They would see it again. Something was coming. Something unexpected. The undefeated were about to meet their match. Captain Park Soho had not slept in 36 hours. His eyes burned with tiredness, but he could not rest. Not now. Not after what his sensors had shown him. The Tyvek was a small ship. It was shaped like a long cylinder with engines at the back and a command bridge at the front. The hull was painted gray with blue stripes. It was not beautiful. It was not impressive. It was just a working ship for working people. Suho had commanded the Tyvek for 3 years. He knew every sound it made, every vibration in its hull. He knew his crew like family. They were good people. Simple people. Engineers and pilots and technicians who had joined the patrol service for steady pay and a chance to see the stars. None of them had signed up for war. Lieutenant Kim Yuna sat at the sensor station. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and quick eyes. She was the best sensor operator Suho had ever worked with. Right now, her face was pale with shock. "Captain," she said. Her voice was steady, but Suho could hear the fear underneath. "I am reading 300 contacts at the edge of the system. Mass readings indicate ships larger than anything in our database. Some of them are bigger than our orbital stations." Suho walked to her station and looked at the screen. 300 red dots hung in space like a swarm of angry insects. Behind them, floating in the darkness, was the colony world of New Busan. New Busan was a young colony, only 50 years old. 2 million people lived there. Farmers mostly growing food in the rich soil. Miners digging metals from the mountains. Families building homes and raising children and dreaming of a good future. Suho had visited New Bizen once, years ago. He remembered green fields and laughing children and the smell of fresh bread from a bakery near the spaceport. Good people. Innocent people. People who would die if this alien fleet attacked. Have they responded to our hails? Suho asked. Communications officer Cho Minho shook his head. He was older than Yuna, with gray at his temples and worry lines around his eyes. Nothing, Captain. I have been broadcasting on all frequencies. Standard greeting. Peace messages. Emergency calls. They are ignoring everything. Or they do not care, muttered engineer Kang Do-yoon from his station at the back of the bridge. He was a big man with rough hands and a scarred face. He had grown up in the mining colonies and had seen hard times. 300 ships. They are not here to talk. Suho knew Do-yoon was right. No one brought 300 warships to have a conversation. Keep trying, he told Minho. Maybe they, Captain. Yuna interrupted. I am picking up transmissions between the alien vessels. Running it through translation software now. The bridge fell silent. Everyone watched as the computer processed the alien language. It took only seconds. The translation appeared on screen. Suho. Read the words and felt ice form in his stomach. Pathetic. Defenses. 1 ship. Humans send 1 ship. Begin bombardment of the colony. Leave nothing alive. They are moving, Yuna reported. Her voice cracked slightly. The fleet is advancing toward New Bizen. Suho closed his eyes for just a moment. He thought about his wife, Junji, back on Earth. She would be sleeping now, peaceful and warm in their small apartment. He thought about his daughter, Gia, who was turning 7 next month. She had asked for a telescope for her birthday. She wanted to see the stars. Would he ever see them again? Suho opened his eyes. Every member of his crew was watching him. 17 people. 17 lives in his hands. They were scared. They had every right to be scared. But they were also waiting. Waiting for their captain to tell them what to do. Suho said. His voice was calm, steady, the voice of a man who had made his choice. Put us between the fleet and New Bizen. Pilot officer Baek Ji-won turned to stare at him. She was small and thin, with nervous hands that somehow became perfectly steady when she touched the flight controls. Sir, did you say between? I did. Captain, Do-yoon said slowly. There are 300 of them. We have 1 ship. 1 small ship with mining lasers and asteroid deflectors. We are not a warship. I know. We will die. Probably. Silence filled the bridge. Suho looked at each of his crew members in turn. He saw their fear, but he also saw something else. Something that made his heart swell with pride. They were not running. 2 million people on that colony, Suho said quietly. Families, children. They have no warning. No defenses. No way to escape. He paused. We can give them time. Maybe not much. Maybe only an hour or 2. But maybe that is enough for some of them to reach the emergency shelters. Maybe some of them survive. Yuna spoke up. Her voice was stronger now. My cousin lives on New Bizen. She has a baby girl. 6 months old. My parents retired there, Minho added. They always wanted to be farmers. One by one, the crew spoke. Everyone had a connection. A friend, a relative, a memory of visiting the colony and meeting good people. Suho nodded. Then we know what we are fighting for. Helm, take us in. Ji-won's hands moved across the controls. The Tyvek turned toward the alien fleet. Its engines roared to life. The small ship began to accelerate. On the sensors, 300 red dots continued their advance. They were not slowing down. They did not see the Tyvek as a threat. Why would they? It was like an ant challenging an elephant, but ants could bite. And sometimes, when an ant bit hard enough, even an elephant noticed. Weapons online, Una reported. She had moved from sensors to the weapons station. Her fear was gone now, replaced by focus. All systems ready. Shields at full power, Dohyun added. For whatever good that will do. Suho sat down in his captain's chair. It was worn and uncomfortable. He had always meant to get it fixed. Too late now. Open a channel to the alien fleet, he ordered. Minho worked his console. Channel open, Captain. Suho stood and faced the viewscreen. He straightened his uniform. He was not a tall man or a strong man. He was just an ordinary person in an extraordinary situation. But his voice did not shake when he spoke. Alien fleet, you are in violation of human sovereign space. You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The alien commander's face appeared on screen. It was a nightmare of gray skin and sharp teeth and cold eyes. It looked at Suho the way a wolf looks at a rabbit. Consequences? The alien laughed. You are one ship. We are 300. Your colony will burn. Little creature. Your species will be catalogued as another conquest. Suho did not flinch. He did not look away. He stared directly into those cold alien eyes. Then you will have to go through us first. The alien stopped laughing. For just a moment, something flickered in its expression. Confusion? Surprise? It could not understand why this tiny creature was not afraid. We intend to, the alien said finally, and cut the connection. 12 ships breaking formation, Una reported. They are targeting us. Suho sat back down in his chair. He gripped the armrests until his knuckles turned white. All hands, he said over the ship's intercom. Battle stations. Today we show them what humans are made of. The Tibet charged forward to meet its fate, and history began to change. Admiral Torak watched the tiny human ship fly toward his fleet, and he laughed. It was a cruel sound, full of contempt. Around him, his bridge crew laughed too. This was a joke. This had to be a joke. Is this a comedy? His second-in-command asked. One ship? They send one ship to fight us? Perhaps they want to negotiate surrender, Torak said, still amused. Open a channel. Let the little creature beg for mercy. But when Captain Suho's face appeared on the screen, Torak stopped laughing. Something was wrong. The human was small and weak-looking, just as the reports had said. But his eyes were wrong. They held no fear, no desperation. They held something Torak had never seen in 400 conquests. Defiance. The human spoke his warning. Torak laughed again and threatened to destroy everything. The human did not beg. He did not bargain. He simply said that the Veth would have to go through his ship first. Torak cut the channel. His amusement was fading. Something about this situation bothered him. No rational creature would challenge 300 warships with one small vessel. It was suicide. It was insanity. It was annoying. Destroy it, he ordered. Quickly. We have a colony to burn. 12 Veth destroyers broke from the main fleet. Each one was 50 times the size of the Tyvek. Their weapons could crack mountains. Their shields could survive nuclear explosions. 12 destroyers to kill one tiny ship was extreme overkill. The destroyers formed an attack formation. They locked weapons on the human vessel. They fired. And they missed. The Tyvek moved. Not away, not retreating, but forward. It dove straight into the middle of the destroyer formation, spinning and rolling through a storm of weapons fire. Beams of burning light cut through space where the ship had been a second before. Missiles exploded against empty darkness. On the Tybex bridge, pilot Beak Ji-won was flying like she had never flown before. Her hands danced across the controls. Her eyes never blinked. She pushed the ship through maneuvers that should have been impossible. How is she doing that? Torak demanded. His amusement was completely gone now. How is that ship still alive? His tactical officer was frantically checking data. Admiral, the human pilot is? I do not understand. She's reacting faster than our targeting systems can track. It is like she knows where our weapons will fire before we fire them. The Tybeck twisted between two destroyers, so close that the Veth gunners could not shoot without hitting their own ships. Lieutenant Yuna fired the mining lasers. They were weak weapons designed to cut asteroids, not warships. But at this range, they burned holes in the destroyer's hull. Return fire grazed the Tybeck shields. Warning lights flashed across every station. Engineer Dohin shouted numbers, keeping track of damage, rerouting power, holding the ship together through pure stubbornness. Shields at 60%. He yelled, "Keep firing." Suho commanded. Yuna found a weak point in one destroyer's armor. She focused all weapons on that single spot. The mining lasers dug deeper and deeper. Sparks flew. Metal melted. The beam hit the destroyer's fuel line. The explosion lit up space like a new sun. The Veth destroyer came apart in a ball of orange fire. Debris scattered in all directions. The shockwave rocked the Tybeck, but Ji-won used it to boost their speed, riding the explosion away from the remaining attackers. On the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Torak stared at his view screen in disbelief. A destroyer. They had lost a destroyer. To a ship smaller than one of their shuttles. Impossible, he whispered. But it had happened. And it was still happening. The Tybeck did not stop. It did not retreat to celebrate its impossible victory. It turned and attacked again. Captain Suho had figured something out in the first moments of battle. The Veth ships were big. They were powerful. But they were designed to fight enemies of similar size. Their weapons were too slow to track something as small and fast as his ship. Their formation tactics assumed large fleet battles, not a single enemy dancing between them. The Veth had never fought an enemy like this, and they did not know how to respond. "All ships fire," Torak commanded. "Concentrate everything on that one vessel." Now the entire fleet was shooting. The space around the Tybeck became a death zone. Hundreds of weapons fired at once. There was nowhere to hide. No safe direction to run. So Suho did not try to hide or run. He attacked. "Target the next destroyer's engine section," he ordered. "Jaewon, get us close." "How close?" she asked. "Close enough to smell their fear." The Tybeck dove under a wave of missiles. It rolled over a beam of plasma. It slipped through a gap in the crossfire that existed for less than a second. And then it was on top of another destroyer, so close that its hull scraped against Veth armor. Yuna fired everything. Point-blank range. No way to miss. The second destroyer died in flames. Hours passed. The battle continued. The Tybeck should have died 100 times. Its shields failed at hour 3. Its hull started taking direct hits at hour 4. By hour 5, half the crew was wounded. Gunner Lihana had taken over from Yuna when she collapsed from exhaustion. Minho was bleeding from a head wound, but refused to leave his station. Still they fought. 3 destroyers. Then 4. Then the Tybeck crippled a 5th so badly that it had to withdraw. Torak watched in growing horror. He had conquered 400 species. He had burned 1,000 worlds. He had never seen anything like this. "Why won't they die?" he demanded. "Why won't they run?" His science officer had been studying the humans throughout the battle. Now he spoke carefully. "Admiral, I believe I understand. These creatures are not fighting to win. They know they cannot win. They are fighting to protect. To protect what? The colony behind them. Their people. They are sacrificing themselves so others might escape. Torak turned to look at the view screen. In the distance, behind the battle, he could see shuttles launching from New Bizon, evacuation ships. The humans on the colony were running because the Tyvek was buying them time. That is irrational, Torak said. Self-preservation is the first law of nature. Every species we have conquered understood this. When death becomes certain, intelligent creatures surrender or flee. Not these creatures, the science officer replied. Humans appear to have a different response. When they cannot save themselves, they try to save others. They call it sacrifice. Dying so that others might live. Torak was quiet for a long moment. He watched the burning human ship continue its desperate fight. 6 hours now. Then 7. The Tyvek was falling apart. Fires burned in its corridors. Oxygen was leaking into space. More than half the crew must be dead or dying. And still they attacked. This is one ship, Torak said slowly. One crew of 17 creatures. If this is what ordinary humans are capable of... He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. If this was what ordinary humans could do, what would happen when the Veth faced humanity's actual warriors? For the first time in 300 years, Admiral Torak felt something he did not recognize. Later, he would learn its name: fear. By hour 9, the Tyvek was dying. The ship that had once been gray and blue was now black with burn marks. Its hull had more holes than solid metal. Fires burned in 3 sections. The oxygen was thin and getting thinner. Every system was failing. Every alarm was screaming, but the ship was still flying. And it was still fighting. Captain Park Suho sat in his command chair, pressing a bloody hand against the wound in his side. Shrapnel from an exploding console had torn through his uniform and into his flesh. The ship's medical officer was dead, so there was no one to treat him properly. He had wrapped the wound with strips torn from his jacket and kept giving orders. Around him, the survivors of his crew worked their stations. There were only 9 of them left. 8 others had died during the battle. Oars had died during the battle. Their bodies lay where they had fallen because there was no time to move them. Lieutenant Yuna was unconscious at the weapons station, finally overcome by exhaustion and injuries. Cho Minho had taken her place, learning to fire weapons he had never trained on. His hands were burned from a plasma leak, but he did not complain. He just kept shooting. Pilot B. Jiwon was still flying. Somehow, impossibly, she was still flying. Her face was covered in blood from a cut on her forehead. Her voice was hoarse from shouting commands. But her hands never stopped moving, never stopped finding ways to keep the Tyvek one step ahead of death. "Captain," she said weakly, "engines are at 12%. One more heart maneuver and we are finished." Suho nodded slowly. He had known this was coming. They had borrowed time from death, but the debt was coming due. "How many shuttles have launched from the colony?" he asked. Minho checked his screens. Sensors show approximately 40,000 people evacuated to the emergency shelters on the far moon. 40,000. They had saved 40,000 lives. That was something. That was worth dying for. But 2 million people had lived on New Bizon. 40,000 was not enough. "Open a channel to the colony," Suho ordered. Governor Yoon Ji-oh appeared on the view screen. She was an older woman with kind eyes and gray hair. Right now, those kind eyes were filled with tears. "Captain Park," she said, her voice breaking. "What you have done, what your crew has done, we can never repay you." "Keep the shuttles moving," Suho replied. "We will give you more time. You have given us everything. No one could ask for more. You have been fighting for 9 hours. Your ship is destroyed. Please, Captain, save yourselves. Run. No one will blame you." Suho thought about that. He thought about turning the ship around, finding some place to hide, waiting for rescue. He could do that. His crew had already proven themselves. They had already done the impossible. No one would call them cowards for saving their own lives now. But then he thought about the shuttles still launching, the people still waiting, the children crying in evacuation lines, not understanding why they had to leave their homes. He thought about his own daughter, Gia. If she were on that colony, would he want someone to keep fighting for her? Even if it seemed hopeless? Even if it meant dying? He already knew the answer. "More time," he said to the governor. "We will give you more time." He cut the channel before she could argue. Suho looked at his remaining crew. 9 people. Wounded, exhausted, scared. They had every reason to give up. Every excuse to stop. "Anyone who wants to leave," he said, "take an escape pod. I will not think less of you. None of us will. You have earned the right to live." No one moved. Engineer Kang Do-yoon actually laughed. It was a rough, tired sound, but there was real humor in it. "Captain, with respect, where would we go? The enemy would shoot down any escape pod before it got 10 kilometers. Besides," he grinned, showing blood-stained teeth, "I want to see the look on those alien faces when they realize they lost 4 destroyers to a garbage ship with ideas above its station." Cho Min-ho nodded. He was holding his burned hands carefully, but his voice was steady. "My grandmother survived terrible things when she was young. She always told me that the only thing worse than dying is living as a coward. I will not prove her wrong." One by one, the survivors spoke. Pilot Ji-won talked about her younger brother who wanted to be a pilot like her. Gunner Lee Hannah mentioned her parents, who had always worried she would never amount to anything. Each of them had someone they were fighting for. Each of them had a reason to keep going. Suho felt tears prick his eyes. He blinked them away. There would be time for crying later. Actually, no. There would be no later. But that was fine. "Then, let us make sure they remember us," he said. "Let us make sure the whole galaxy remembers what happened here today. 17 humans against 300 warships. Let them tell that story for 1,000 years." He stood up from his chair, ignoring the pain in his side. "All power to engines and weapons. Nothing else matters now. We are going to fly straight at their flagship. We probably will not reach it, but we are going to try." The crew cheered. It was a weak sound, barely a whisper, but it was full of defiance, full of pride, full of that strange human stubbornness that refused to accept the impossible. On the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Torak watched the crippled human ship turn toward his flagship. It was insane. The vessel was barely holding together. It had no shields, almost no weapons, hardly any power. It was a corpse that had not stopped fighting. "They are targeting us," his tactical officer reported. Disbelief filled his voice. "Admiral, they are actually attacking us." "Why?" Torak demanded. He was not asking anyone in particular. He was asking the universe. Why do they keep fighting? What do they hope to accomplish? His science officer had been watching the battle data carefully. Now he spoke in a quiet voice. "Admiral, I believe I understand now. The humans are not fighting because they think they can win. They are fighting because they cannot accept losing. They are fighting because surrender is not in their nature. They would rather die with weapons firing than live knowing they gave up." Torak stared at the approaching ship. Fires burned along its hull. It was leaving a trail of debris and atmosphere. It looked like a wounded animal dragging itself toward one final bite. "This is one crew," he said slowly. 17 creatures. They have destroyed 4 of our ships and crippled 7 more. They have held us here for 9 hours. 9 hours. He turned to look at his officers. We have conquered 400 species. Not one of them ever made us work this hard for a single system. The bridge was silent. The Veth officers exchanged uncomfortable glances. They had been raised to believe they were invincible. They had been taught that conquest was their birthright. The galaxy belonged to the strong, and the Veth were the strongest. But the strongest creature in the room was flying toward them in a dying ship, refusing to accept defeat. If this is what their common soldiers can do, Torak said quietly, what will their warriors be like? What will happen when we threaten their home world? Will every human fight like this? No one answered. No one wanted to think about that question. Torak made a decision. It was small, but it would change everything. Concentrate all fire on that ship, he ordered. I want it destroyed, now, before it reaches us. 30 Veth warships turned their weapons on the TB, EK.10% of the invasion. Fleet. Committed to killing 17 humans. It was almost a compliment. The tieback made its final charge at hour 11. Captain Suho stood on what remained of his bridge. The ceiling had collapsed. 2 of his crew lay dead beneath the wreckage. Sparks fell like rain from broken wires. The air was so thin that everyone was gasping for breath. But the ship was still moving forward. Distance to enemy flagship? Suho asked. His voice was barely a whisper. 15,000 kilometers, Minho replied. He was the only one still at a working station. Everyone else was too injured to do more than hold on and pray. 15,000 kilometers. So close. But the tieback had nothing left. Its engines were dying. Its weapons were empty. The hull was cracking apart. They were not going to make it. Suho knew this. He had known it for the last hour. But he had kept flying anyway, kept pushing forward, kept refusing to give up. Because that was what humans did. That was who they were. Open a channel, he said. All frequencies. I want everyone to hear this. Minho worked his broken console with burned fingers. Channel open, Captain. Suho straightened his torn uniform. He lifted his chin. When he spoke, his voice was strong, clear, the voice of a man who had already won, even though he was about to die. My name is Park Suho. I am the captain of the patrol ship Tieback. For 11 hours, my crew and I have fought to protect our colony from an alien invasion. We are not soldiers. We are not warriors. We are ordinary people who were given an impossible choice. He paused. Through the cracked view screen, he could see the Veth flagship growing larger. Weapons fire streaked past his ship. The final moments were approaching. We chose to fight, he continued. We chose to stand between our people and the darkness. We knew we would die. We did not care. Because some things are more important than living. Some things are worth dying for. On the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Torak listened to the human's words. He did not understand them. How could death be worth anything? How could defeat be victory? But something in the human's voice made him uneasy. Something in those calm, defiant words spoke of a power the Veth had never encountered. Today we die, Suho said. But today we also win. Because we showed the galaxy what humans are made of. We showed them that we do not break. We do not surrender. We protect our own, no matter the cost. The Tieback shuddered. More hull plates fell away. The end was seconds away now. Suho's last words echoed across every channel, heard by Veth and human alike. Remember us. 30 Veth warships fired at once. The Tieback disappeared in a storm of light and fire. When the explosion faded, there was nothing left but scattered debris and drifting ash. 17 humans. One small ship. Gone, but not forgotten. Admiral Tariq stared at the empty space where the Tieback had been. He should have felt satisfaction. The enemy was destroyed. The path to the colony was clear. Victory was his. He felt nothing. No pride, no pleasure. Only a cold emptiness that he could not explain. Set course for the colony, his second-in-command said. We can begin bombardment within the hour. Torak did not respond. He was still looking at the debris field. Somewhere in that cloud of twisted metal and frozen atmosphere were the remains of 17 creatures who had done the impossible. They had made him afraid. 3 hours later, the Veth fleet reached New Bizen's orbit. They found an empty world. Every single person had been evacuated. The Tyvek had bought enough time. Every shuttle had launched. Every emergency shelter on the moon was full. 2 million humans had survived because 17 humans had died. Torak could have destroyed the empty cities. He could have burned the forests and poisoned the oceans. He could have left the planet dead as punishment for this insult. Instead, he gave an order that shocked his entire fleet. Hold fire. We are leaving, Admiral. His second-in-command stared at him in disbelief. We have won. The planet is ours. We have not won anything. Torak turned away from the view screen. His voice was tired, old, changed. We have learned something today. Something important. He walked toward the exit, pausing at the doorway to look back at his officers. We have conquered 400 species, he said quietly. Every one of them surrendered when they saw our power. They knew they were beaten. They accepted their fate. He gestured toward the planet below. These humans did not surrender. They did not accept defeat. One tiny ship held us for 11 hours. 11 hours. And when it died, it was still attacking. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. What happens when we attack their home world? When we threaten everything they love? Will every human fight like that? No one answered. Contact the homeworld, Torak ordered. Recommend immediate withdrawal from human space. Recommend we leave this species alone, forever. He left the bridge. He did not look back. 6 months later, the United Human Navy held a memorial service above New Bizen. The debris of the Tyvek had been carefully collected and placed in a permanent orbital monument. It floated in the darkness, catching the light of distant stars, a twisted memorial to impossible courage. Admiral Otaiyang stood before the gathered crowd. Thousands of people had come, soldiers, civilians, families of the fallen. They stood in silence as he read the names. Park Soo-ho, Kim Yuna, Cho Min-ho, Big Ji-won, Kang Do-yun, Lee Hannah, and 11 others. 17 names that would live forever. The Veth Empire had withdrawn completely. Intelligence reports said their ruling council was in chaos. For the first time in 3,000 years, they were questioning their entire way of life. One small ship had done what 400 species could not. It had made them doubt. Below the monument, on the colony that should have been ash, life continued. Children ran through streets that should have been rubble. Families ate dinner in homes that should have been burned. Dreams grew in a future that should have ended. Among the crowd at the memorial was a small girl named Park Jia. She was 7 years old now. Her birthday had come and gone while she waited to learn if her father was alive. He was not. But he had done something amazing. Something that made everyone call him a hero. Something that made grown-ups cry when they talked about him. Jia did not fully understand. She only knew that her daddy had been very brave and that he was not coming home. She held her mother's hand tightly and looked up at the floating monument. Is Daddy up there? She asked. Her mother, Yoonji, wiped tears from her eyes. Yes, baby. He is watching over us. He will always watch over us. Jia thought about that. She remembered her father's smile, his laugh, the way he used to carry her on his shoulders and pretend they were flying through space. "I want to be like Daddy when I grow up," she said. Yoonji pulled her daughter close. "I hope you never have to be. But if you are, I know you will make him proud." The ceremony ended. The crowd began to scatter, but the monument remained. It would always remain, a reminder of what had happened, a warning to anyone who might threaten humanity again. The galaxy had learned something that day. Not just the Veth, but every watching civilization. Every empire that had thought about conquering the young human race. Humans were small. They were weak. They had no great fleet, no ancient history, no powerful weapons. But they would fight. They would fight with everything they had. They would sacrifice everything for each other. They would face impossible odds and refuse to break. The Tyvek had become legend. The impossible stand entered human history alongside the greatest last stands ever recorded. 17 names were carved into monuments across 100 worlds. And in the darkness between stars, where empires plotted and conquerors dreamed, a new word spread. Not a threat, not a warning, a promise. Human. It meant something now. It meant stubbornness. It meant defiance. It meant a species that would never stop fighting, never stop protecting its own, never accept defeat. The Veth never came back. They stayed in their corner of the galaxy and told stories about the 17 humans who had broken their spirit. Other empires heard those stories. They decided to find easier prey. Humanity grew. Humanity expanded. Humanity built its own empire, not through conquest, but through alliance. Because other species wanted the humans as friends. No one wanted them as enemies. All because of one ship, one crew, one impossible choice. Remember us, Captain Suho had said. The galaxy would never forget. And somewhere, among the stars, a little girl with her father's eyes looked up at the night sky and dreamed of becoming a pilot. The story was not ending. It was just beginning. The end.